Picture this. You need to buy groceries. Sounds simple, right? For most of us, it's a quick drive or maybe a short walk to the nearest store. But imagine if buying a bag of rice or a bottle of cooking oil meant climbing down an 800-meter cliff face on steel ladders that seemed to stretch into forever. Imagine if going to school, visiting a doctor, or even just seeing what the outside world looks like required 6 hours of climbing on ladders that sway in the mountain wind. One wrong step, one moment where your foot slips, and there's nothing but air between you and the rocks far below. This isn't a nightmare. This is everyday life in Atuleer village, a place tucked away in the mountains of Liangshan, Sichuan Province, China. People call it the Cliff Village, and once you understand what life is like there, you'll know exactly why. Atuleer sits perched between 1,400 and 1,600 meters up in a mountain pass, home to 72 families who built their lives in one of the most isolated places on Earth. The village itself isn't the problem. It's getting there. Between the primary school at the bottom of the mountain and the village at the top, there's a brutal 1,000-meter difference in altitude. To reach the outside world, villagers have to navigate an 800-meter vertical drop, climbing 218 steel stairs divided into 13 sections that cling to the cliff face like a metal spine. But those steel stairs? They're actually the new, safer version. For generations, the only way in or out was 17 sections of rattan ladders lashed to the rock, appearing and disappearing along the cliff face. 2 of those ladder sections were nearly vertical. Imagine looking straight up at a 100-meter ladder and knowing you have to climb it. And the truly terrifying parts? The gaps between the ladders where there was nothing but bare cliff, where villagers had to find handholds and footholds in the rock itself, trusting their lives to their grip and their balance. Life in Atuleer means every single trip outside becomes a calculated risk. The villagers grow vegetables and raise pigs, but to sell them, they have to carry everything down those ladders to the town below. Then they climb back up with whatever daily necessities they can afford, hauling bags of rice, bottles of oil, maybe some clothes or medicine. The journey is so long and so dangerous that some people born in Cliff Village have never left it, not once in their entire lives. The world beyond the cliffs might as well be another planet. The children had it especially hard. Imagine being 6 or 7 years old and having to climb those old rattan ladders twice a month just to go to school. Parents would wake up with knots in their stomachs every time their kids made the journey, knowing that one slip could mean losing them forever. Education meant gambling your child's life, and that's a choice no parent should ever have to make. The Chinese government finally looked at this situation and decided enough was enough. They invested 600 million yuan to transform Cliff Village, starting with replacing those terrifying rattan ladders with steel ones. The change was incredible. Travel conditions improved dramatically almost overnight. What used to be a death-defying act became merely exhausting and scary. Children could now go to school without their parents lying awake at night in fear. That's progress, even if it doesn't sound like much to those of us who just hop on a school bus. But don't think for a second that steel ladders made life easy. A round trip still takes 4 hours of climbing. 4 hours. Think about that next time you complain about a 10-minute walk. Young people in the village became the lifeline, making the journey up and down to transport everything the village needed. Electrical appliances, instant noodles, tea to sell at the market, daily necessities, you name it. Their legs burned, their hands cramped, but they kept climbing because their families needed them to. The descent is actually more dangerous than going up. Your legs shake from holding your weight on each step, your knees scream in protest, and one moment of weakness could send you tumbling. Winter makes everything 10 times worse. Ice on the steel rungs, wind that cuts through your clothes, visibility that disappears into white fog. Going down the mountain in winter isn't just difficult, it's borderline suicidal. Still, the government kept investing in Cliff Village. They built a 4G mobile phone base station and TV relay towers, bringing the internet to a place that had been cut off from the modern world for centuries. Suddenly, Cliff Village wasn't quite so isolated anymore. The young people seized this opportunity with both hands. They learned to use mobile apps and social media, and they started promoting Cliff Village's agricultural products online. Navel oranges, green peppers, olives, Sichuan peppercorns. Things that used to be impossible to sell because getting them down the mountain was too difficult could now be advertised to customers across China. The village transformed itself. They developed proper farming industries. Navel oranges and olives became major crops. They started raising goats and chickens, creating breeding industries that actually made money. Running water came to the village, then stable electricity, then broadband internet. The government organized trips for villagers to leave the mountain and learn new technologies, new farming techniques, new ways of making a living. These weren't just handouts. They were teaching people how to build something sustainable. Life got better, bit by bit. Villagers could make smoked bacon the traditional way, carefully smoking the cured meat until it turned a perfect dry yellow, then hanging it in ventilated areas for 7 days to finish. They could raise goats and actually get them to market without losing half the herd on the way down. They could stay connected to the outside world through their phones, watching the same videos and reading the same news as people in the cities. The isolation that had defined Cliff Village for centuries was finally breaking apart. Tourists started coming too, curious to see this impossible place and experience climbing those famous steel ladders. For the villagers, it became another source of income, hosting visitors, showing them around, sharing meals. Friends would visit and then need to be escorted back down the mountain. And the villagers would make that grueling descent look almost easy through sheer familiarity. They knew every rung, every rest platform, every dangerous spot where the wind hit hardest. One story captures the absurdity and determination of life there. The first university-educated daughter-in-law who married into the village. Every single time she wanted to visit her husband's family, she had to climb those steel ladders for 6 hours. 6 hours straight up, then 6 hours back down when she left. Most people would have said forget it after the first visit, but she kept coming back. That's commitment that goes beyond what most of us can even imagine. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. After all this investment, after all the improvements that made life in Cliff Village possible instead of just barely survivable, many villagers started leaving. The government eventually offered them the option to relocate to new settlements at the base of the mountain. Real houses with real roads, schools within walking distance, hospitals nearby, jobs that didn't require risking your life just to get to work. For many families, especially those with young children, the choice was obvious. They left. Yet today, if you visit Cliff Village, you'll find it's not empty. Some families chose to stay. When asked why they don't move down the mountain after everything they've been through, their answer is simple but profound. They're used to life here. This is where their ancestors lived for generations. All their farmland is on this mountain. The infrastructure is finally complete. They have water, electricity, internet, everything they need. After all those years of struggling to survive, they've finally built something comfortable, something theirs. Why would they leave now? It's a question that doesn't have a simple answer. From the outside, it seems crazy to stay in a place that still requires hours of dangerous climbing just to buy groceries. But for those villagers, Cliff Village isn't just a location. It's their identity. It's every sunrise they've watched from above the clouds, every harvest they've brought in from land their grandparents planted, every memory they've made in a place that tested them and made them stronger. The village continues on, caught between two worlds. The steel ladders still wind up the cliff face, carrying young people down to the markets with bags of produce and bringing them back up with supplies. Goats still need to be herded down for sale, a journey that takes over 2 hours and requires coordination and courage. The 4G signal still broadcasts across the mountain, letting villagers scroll through social media and video chat with relatives in the cities. Smoked bacon still hangs drying in the mountain air, prepared the same way it has been for centuries. What Cliff Village teaches us isn't really about ladders or cliffs or isolation. It's about the choices we make when life puts impossible obstacles in our path. The villagers could have given up generations ago, decided the struggle wasn't worth it, packed up and found somewhere easier to live. But they didn't. They held on, they climbed, they carried what they needed to survive up and down those cliffs. They raised their children and sent them to school despite the danger. They adapted when the world finally gave them the tools to do so. And now, when given the chance to leave it all behind, some of them looked at that offer and said, "No thanks, we're good here." That's not stubbornness or foolishness. That's knowing who you are and what matters to you. It's understanding that sometimes the hardest path is the one that makes you most yourself. The next time you're facing something difficult, something that makes you want to quit, remember the people of Cliff Village. Remember the parents who sent their children down Rattan ladders to get an education. Remember the young people who climbed 4 hours round trip just to buy instant noodles. Remember the families who chose to stay in an impossible place because it was home. We all have our own cliffs to climb, our own impossible journeys to make. The question isn't whether the climb is hard, it always is. The question is whether what's at the top is worth fighting for. For the people of Atuleer, the answer has always been yes. And maybe that's the kind of courage we all need a little more of in our lives.